"Ah, my children, let me tell you about Madam Jojo, the woman whose laughter could be heard from the market to the church gate. She was round like a full moon, always dressed in bright lace and matching head tie. Everyone in Ewo town knew her, not just for her beauty, but for her love of food. Madam Jojo could eat anything: rice, beans, yam, soup, puff-puff, even food that wasn't hers. At every wedding, naming ceremony, and burial, you would see her sitting close to the pot, fanning herself, smiling, and waiting for her turn to collect food. But what people didn't know was that Madam Jojo's hunger wasn't ordinary. It came from something deeper, something dark. One hot afternoon, at the Ewo market, women gathered under the mango tree gossiping as usual. "Have you seen Madam Jojo?" one asked. "She ate 5 plates of jollof at Mama Titi's party and still asked for more." They all laughed. But old Mama Ifioma, who sold pepper, shook her head slowly. She said. "Laugh now. But that woman's hunger will one day swallow her." They laughed harder, thinking she was joking. But Mama Ifioma had seen things, strange things. She claimed that once, she saw Madam Jojo eating alone by the riverbank at midnight, her eyes glowing like fireflies. Nobody believed her. They said hunger can make people do funny things. That night, after everyone slept, the moon was full and bright like the eyes of a cat. Madam Jojo woke up quietly, tied her wrapper, and carried a small pot of soup. She walked toward the river. Some say hunger woke her, others say something was calling her name softly from the water. "Jojo! Jojo!" When she reached the riverbank, she placed her foot down and whispered, "I have brought your portion." Then, she started eating and laughing as if someone invisible sat beside her. But those who watched from afar said the water moved like it was breathing. They swore they saw a shadow rise from it, shaped like a woman with fish scales and red eyes. Madam Jojo smiled at it like they were old friends. The next morning, Madam Jojo woke up early and went to the market as if nothing happened. But something had changed. Her eyes looked brighter, and her voice sounded deeper. She greeted everyone warmly, but when a little girl accidentally dropped her momo near her feet, Madam Jojo hissed sharply, her face twisting for a moment like a snake's. Later that day, a stranger came to the market. He wore a long white cloth and carried a cow tail. His eyes were calm but strong. He asked the traders, "Who is Madam Jojo?" Everyone pointed toward her. The man nodded and said, "Her stomach is not hers anymore. Tell her to stop feeding the river spirit before it's too late." A week later, there was a big wedding in town. Madam Jojo was the first to arrive. She wore gold lace and coral beads, smiling as the aroma of jollof filled the air. When food was served, she didn't wait for her turn. She pushed forward, grabbed a plate, then another, and another. People began whispering, "Oh, Madam Jojo again." But this time, something strange happened. As she ate, her laughter grew louder and louder until it didn't sound human anymore. The drummers stopped drumming. Even the bride began to cry. Madam Jojo's eyes turned glassy. Suddenly, she screamed, "I am still hungry," and all the food on the tables disappeared, vanished into thin air. That night, Madam Jojo fell ill. Her stomach swelled like a drum, and she cried for help. The stranger from the market returned and stood by her door. "You fed what should never be fed," he said softly. "The river goddess has taken your hunger for herself. Now, you will eat but never be filled." He told her to go to the river at dawn and beg for mercy. But Madam Jojo was proud. "I cannot beg water," she shouted. The man shook his head sadly. "Then water will come to you." That night, thunder roared, and heavy rain poured for hours. People said the river was angry, searching for its servant. Madam Jojo didn't sleep. She saw visions, shadows dancing, fish with human faces, and a woman rising from the water, her voice echoing, "You promised to feed me, Jojo. You broke the covenant. Madam Jojo woke up sweating, screaming, and clutching her stomach. She ran to Mama Ifeoma's house at midnight, weeping. "Mama, help me," she cried. The old woman looked at her, pity filling her eyes. "I warned you, Jojo," she said. "When you eat what is meant for spirits, the spirits will come for you." She gave her a small charm made of cowries and said, "Take this to the river. Go alone before sunrise." Before dawn, Madam Jojo went to the river trembling. She placed the charm on the ground and knelt. "Please, forgive me," she cried. The river was calm for a moment, then it bubbled. A voice spoke, soft but cold, "You fed me with laughter and pride. Now feed me with sacrifice." Madam Jojo's heart pounded. "What do you want?" she asked. The water rose and shaped into a figure that looked exactly like her, but thinner, darker, and smiling strangely. "Bring me what you love most," the spirit said, "and I will free you from eternal hunger." Madam Jojo fainted. The next day, Madam Jojo opened her food stall again, pretending everything was normal. People came to buy rice, beans, and fried plantain. But her food no longer smelled sweet. It had a strange, sour scent. Those who ate it said they dreamed of drowning that night. Children started avoiding her stall. Even her close friend Mama Titi stopped greeting her. Madam Jojo's smile faded. Each day, her face grew thinner, but her appetite only grew worse. She ate morning, afternoon, and night, but her stomach remained hollow, like a drum of emptiness. On the seventh night, as the moon rose, the spirit appeared again in her mirror. "You have delayed too long," it hissed. "Bring me what you love most, or I will take it myself." Madam Jojo screamed and smashed the mirror, but the reflection kept laughing from the shards on the floor. She looked around her empty house. The only thing she loved more than food was her late husband's portrait. He had died years ago, leaving her his favorite necklace. Trembling, she took the necklace and went to the river once more. "Here," she cried, "take it." The wind howled, and the necklace vanished into the water. After Madam Jojo threw the necklace into the river, the water grew still again. She sighed in relief and turned to leave, but as she walked home, she noticed something strange. Her shadow no longer followed her. Under the moonlight, her feet touched the earth, but there was no dark shape beneath her. Fear gripped her chest. She ran to her compound and stood before a lantern. Still, no shadow. That night, she couldn't sleep. Dogs barked endlessly outside, and the sound of splashing water echoed faintly from the distance. The next morning, people saw wet footprints leading from the river straight to Madam Jojo's door. A little boy named Chike, who often helped Madam Jojo wash plates at her store, knocked on her door that morning. "Auntie, you left water everywhere again," he said innocently. But when Madam Jojo opened the door, the boy froze. Her eyes were pale blue, and her skin looked damp, like someone who had just come out of a river. "Go home, my child," she whispered, smiling strangely. Chike ran off crying. He told his mother, "Auntie Jojo is not herself anymore." By evening, news spread around the market, "Madam Jojo is possessed." Mama Ifeoma just nodded sadly. "She fed the river," she murmured. "Now, the river feeds on her." That night, the people of Ewo heard drums, deep, slow, and wet-sounding, coming from the riverbank. Nobody dared to go close, but one brave fisherman, Bola, hid behind a palm tree. What he saw chilled his blood. Madam Jojo was dancing in the moonlight, surrounded by water that moved like living snakes. Her laughter echoed like 10 voices at once. Each drumbeat made the river glow faintly blue, and shapes, half human, half fish, rose around her, clapping their slimy hands. When Bola screamed and ran away, the drum stopped instantly. The next morning, he couldn't speak again. From that day, the town changed. Livestock disappeared. The wells dried faster. Children woke at night crying, saying they dreamt of Madam Jojo asking for food. One evening, she walked into the market quietly, smiling again. "Don't be afraid," she said softly. But when she reached the food seller's area, every pot cracked open on its own, spilling soup, rice, and beans into the dirt. "You see," she whispered, "even the food is afraid of me." Then she turned and walked toward the river. No one followed her. Only the echo of her laughter floated back with the wind. 2 days later, an old priest arrived from a distant village. His name was Baba Ekoma, known for casting out river spirits. He listened to the people's cries, nodded, and said, "She broke an oath of hunger. The river owns her spirit now. But maybe, just maybe, we can bargain." That night, the priest stood by the river, burning incense and chanting ancient words. The water bubbled, and Madam Jojo appeared again, her skin shining like wet silver. "Leave me alone," she hissed. Baba Ekoma raised a gourd filled with fire and said, "You will not take this land." The river howled like a beast. The wind rose violently. The villagers watched from afar as the river turned dark. Baba Ekoma threw cowries and bones into the water, shouting, "Spirit of hunger, release her." Madam Jojo screamed, clutching her stomach as blue light burst from her body. The water spirits circled her, crying out like banshees. Suddenly, lightning struck the river, and everything went silent. When the villagers opened their eyes, Madam Jojo lay on the ground, trembling. But the river rippled, as if mocking his words. For a while, life in Ewo returned to normal. Madam Jojo stopped selling food and began attending church daily. She gave alms to the poor and never went near the river again. People slowly forgave her, saying, "Oh, hunger is not a sin after all." But sometimes, at night, she would wake up drenched in sweat, hearing faint whispers, "Jojo, we are still hungry." She would pray louder, covering her ears, but the voice always came back with the same message, "The debt is not yet paid." The rainy season came early that year. Heavy downpours flooded the town, and the river overflowed its banks. One morning, Madam Jojo opened her door to find fish flopping around her compound. She screamed and fainted. When she woke up, she saw a trail of wet footprints leading straight into her bedroom. Terrified, she ran to Baba Ekoma's shrine. But the priest looked grave. "It is finished," he said. "The river has come for its child." He gave her one last charm and whispered, "If they call your name tonight, don't answer." That night, thunder roared. Madam Jojo locked herself inside her hut, clutching the charm tightly. Then came a soft knock on the door, tock tock tock. "Jojo," a voice whispered. "I am thirsty. Give me water." Her hands shook. It was the same voice she had heard years ago when her hunger first began. She shut her eyes and prayed, but the knocking grew louder. "Jojo, you cannot hide from your own reflection." Suddenly, the door flung open. A wave of cold water rushed in, and she screamed as the shadowy figure of herself rose from the floor. "You should have fed me," the spirit roared. By morning, the rain had stopped. The villagers found Madam Jojo's hut empty, except for her wrapper floating in a puddle and her cooking pots filled with river water. Baba Ekoma wept softly and said, "The debt is paid. The river has claimed its daughter." From that day, nobody fished or fetched water from the river after dark. And sometimes, when the moon is full, the women say they still hear her voice near the water, laughing and asking, "Do you have food for me?" So, my children, remember this: never make promises to spirits, especially when hunger drives you. For not every hunger is meant to be fed.